Good day, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my home in Livingston, Montana. Okay, before I get into this childhood story of mine, I hope this video finds you in good health and in good spirits. Okay, right off the bat, ladies and gentlemen, this is just a simple childhood story about grizzly bears. There's no hype in here. There's no blood and gore. There's no negativity or nothing like that. So if you're after that, like so many people on YouTube are, you might as well just click this video off. And also, while I'm at it, I don't know if you folks like my format of telling stories, something I started a few weeks ago. If you like it or you don't, but just let me tell you this. Just this act of what I'm doing right now, relaying a story on you, this used to be an entertainment form, say 100, 200 years ago, before we had all this electronics, radios, TVs, internet, iPhones, social media, etc., etc. So, but I'm going to continue to sprinkle my channel with a few of these simple little stories just because I want to, and I can, okay? This story, ladies and gentlemen, took place way back when I was about 16 years old. I grew up in a place, I was growing up, living in Ronan, Montana. That's in the Mission Valley up in northwestern Montana. Just Google it, you'll catch right on. And anyway, this one in particular hot summer day, I was wanting to backpack up, Nick and I, my brother and I, was wanting to backpack up into the Rocky Mountains because we used to like to backpack up to a place called Lower Terrace Lake. Why? Because the fishing was real good up there. Not very many people ever used to go up in that country because it was a good 5-6 hour hike, and those fish up there were, they bit real well because they weren't spooky, because they didn't see humans that often. Okay, all right. Due east to Ronan, about 6-8 miles is where the trailhead started, where you start up into those mountains, because the Mission Valley, it was set at an elevation about 4,400 feet, something like that. Them terrace lakes, or the upper lower terrace lakes, set up at an elevation of about 8,500 feet above sea level. So that means you had to bust your ass about 4,000 or 5,000 feet straight in the air to get in there, okay? When you got to the trailhead, the first thing that you had to do was negotiate about 20 to 30 switchbacks. And I'm talking about going up in elevation the whole time so that you could get over this great, big, huge ridge. And from there, the traveling got a little bit easier. You drop down into the country where those lakes were nestled into the Rockies, okay? You following me? Yeah, in other words, the hardest part of that trip is when you left the valley floor and started on that west face of the Rockies to get up over that ridge I just described. Okay, on this one particular day, the brother and I got our backpacks on. I got my trusty 12-gauge shotgun, and we get about halfway up that trail we're trying to make it up over that ridge and all that. And we ran into a huckleberry patch. Now, I don't know how much you folks know about huckleberries, but huckleberries aren't like your average berry. They only grow at certain elevation, around 5,500 to 6,000 feet, okay? They've got to have the right humidity. They've got to have the right temperature, the right amount of sunlight, the right amount of soil. I mean, they are a very picky berry, okay? And the bushes themselves only grow about 18 inches to 2 feet up off the ground, and they always grow in patches, just patches. You know, you don't find them all scattered all over little clumps. They grow in patches, okay? And usually these patches are like, oh, I don't know, 20, 30 feet in diameter, you know, or whatever have you. Well, we run into one of these patches of huckleberries, and nobody, and I mean nobody back in the day, would pass up huckleberries. We planned on just eating them right on the spot. Well, that's what we always did. So we throwed off our packs. I carefully laid down my 12-gauge shotgun, my 12 side-by-side. I had one of those old Western Field side-by-sides with about a 30-inch barrel. I packed number 2 goose shot in there for grizzly bears. But anyway, we get down on our hands and knees and we start wolfing in these huckleberries. I mean, we just start gorging on them, throwing these things right in our pie holes. Pie holes, listen to that. Yeah, because that's what you did with huckleberries, because you didn't find them that often, you know what I mean? Like I say, you just don't find huckleberries anywhere. They are where they are, and they require specific growing climate conditions, or you don't have huckleberries. Well, anyway, so we're down on our hands and knees, scurrying through these bushes, and gobbling up these huckleberries. And after about 20 minutes went by or so, I told old Nick, I said, man, some of these berries are kind of thin. Some of these berries look like they've been nibbled on, and, they're kind of scarce and they look like they've been scalped, Nick says, yeah, I'm kind of noticing that too. That should have been red flag number 1, ladies and gentlemen, but, we kept gorging and all that, and about another 10 minutes goes by or so, and one of us, either me or Nick, we ran into this log, about 10, 12 inches in diameter, about 10 foot long. This log was downfall. It was laying on the ground on one edge of the huckleberry patch, and this log was torn all to hell. I mean, it was scratched and torn up and chewed up and all this other kind of stuff. And, old Nick looked at me and I looked at old Nick, and we don't say too much, but, the gears of paranoia are starting to kind of turn in our brains, if you know what I mean. So we kept on gorging on these huckleberries and wolfing them down and throwing them in our pie hole and all this other stuff. And next thing you know, we ran upon this boulder about this big around, about 2 foot, 2.5 foot in diameter. And this boulder, I estimate, you're going to have to forgive me, this is a lot of years ago, I estimate that boulder weighed about 150, maybe 200 pounds. And it had been rolled out of the position that it had been sitting in, because we could clearly see the impression, where it had been. I mean, for probably centuries, And this time, old Nick and I are looking at each other like, hey, this ain't too cool. Because we knew that there was only one creature up there in them woods that could be doing stuff like that, and that was the almighty silver-tipped grizzly bear. Make no mistake about it. Because bears, they like to tear up logs because they get underneath there and eat ants and grubs and all that kind of stuff. And same with rocks. They'll scatter rocks and eat all kinds of insects. Bears remind me when they browse a lot like pigs, ladies and gentlemen. It's that simple. Well, about the time all of this stuff, this environmental stimuli is coming together in my brother and I's head, we're looking at each other like this and everything. The next thing that we noticed is those woods got deathly quiet. I mean, it got so quiet in those woods, you could have probably heard a feather fall. You could have definitely heard a pin drop. I mean, there was no birds chirping. There was no, squirrels chattering and all this other kind of stuff. Heck, there wasn't even any wind blowing through the pines, you know what I mean? And it was one of those deals that it just caused the hair to stand up right on the back of Nick's head and my head. And we both looked at each other and, one of us said, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Well, we didn't. It's not that my brother and I telecommunicated back and forth, with that, you know what I mean. It's not like we could read each other's minds or nothing, but we both agreed that we needed to do one thing and one thing only, and that was get the hell out of there. So we gathered up our packs and threw them on, and I gathered up my shotgun, and up the trail we went, and we actually went on a run because we realized that we were sitting right in the middle of a grizzly bear's dinner plate. We were about ready to become Mr. Grizzly Bear's dinner, if nothing else, All the sign was there. For all we knew, that bear could have been 20 yards from us, off sleeping or something, and just never heard us, because, back in them days, Nick and I, we weren't, we grew up in the woods, and we weren't real noisy or nothing like that, But The bottom line is that grizzly bear was close. But Nick and I, we took off, not on a dead run, but, we on a slow run, and we didn't stop running until we put at least a half a mile between us and that berry patch, because that was being inhabited, that was feeding grounds for the almighty silver tip. What's the moral of this story, ladies and gentlemen? Here it is. If you ever come up here to Montana and these woods get real quiet, you best be paying attention, because there's something going on. If the wildlife stops chirping and the birds stop chirping and all this other stuff, you better pay attention. If you find logs and rocks out of place and stuff like that, you better pay attention. If you start seeing a bunch of sign, especially bear sign, you really better pay attention. Okay, that's the end of my story. We never did get attacked. We never did see the bear, but I do believe that if old Nick and I hadn't have made the series of decisions that we did, we very well could have got mauled. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening to this story. Like I always say, take care of yourselves, and we'll see you on down the trail.